Welcome back to Pod Places. I'm Jeff Sigler with Revitalize or Die here in Pittsburgh.
And I'm Ryan with Civic Brand.
And thanks everybody for making your way here to allowing your ears to enjoy this place-based brilliance. We are lucky today to have Ben Muldrow. What a talented asshole from... Just kidding. Talented
like
by
that
far.
just came up.
Right out of the gate with that. Wow.
Sorry about that. There's ongoing conversations. Ben is far from an asshole. Talented for sure. Ben's with our net Muldrow, and he's split between the South and the East somehow. He keeps his Southern charm, but he moves fast like an East Coast man. So, Ben, why don't you give yourself see if you can top that introduction.
That was pretty solid. Yeah, Ben Muldrow, Arnett Muldrow and Associates. We are a urban planning firm. We specialize in economic development, working with small communities all over the country, and been doing this for about 20 years. And one of the things that Ryan and I share is we both focus in on community branding and kind of focus on the importance of eliminating a whole lot of the inefficiencies of a community brand, and truly believe in giving communities the opportunity to preserve their character and use that to leverage their own future. So just passionate downtown lover, believer in place, and have had the privilege of getting to know everybody here at Proud Places a lot more over the past couple months.
Excellent. And that's probably a good primer to revisit that. So, I know for those that are new to listening to Pod Places, it's Proud Places came together towards the beginning of the pandemic. It was a bunch of us kind of consultants and professionals, entrepreneurs that all kept bumping into each other online that had the same message, that are all pretty passionate about the places that we live, and why, for the most part, we've done a really terrible job of shaping those places over the last 50 to 70 years. And I think that's all a particular passion and interest. That's why we all started companies to try to work on this issue of how do we get local government to pay more attention to building quality places? How do we raise this issue? Because more than any other thing in our lives, besides maybe our immediate family, place shapes us. It shapes what we do. It shapes who we meet. It shapes how we go about leading our lives, and health, like mental health, physical health, economic health, social health, is all shaped by our places. So we all came together and are doing our best to help elevate the discussions around place. So, we do that. I'm getting to the end. I'm pitching the end already at the beginning, but we do that through this podcast. We do it through regular blog posts over on at Facebook, at our website, and on Instagram and Twitter. So you will check those out. But this week, Ben submitted a particularly fantastic piece, and it's one of these things that's nice because, like, we have these sort of side conversations on Slack. Some interesting, some more interesting than others. But there was a really good conversation that was going on last week about what can be done to help keep our spaces more active. How do we keep our places active long into the winter months when we're pretty used to them, shutting down and just not participating? And so we had a good conversation there, and Ben put out a fantastic video today that about those places, about what are some strategies to keeping those places active, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to ask you a bit about that, Ben, and have a discussion around that.
Absolutely. Well, if you think back, actually, and kind of going back to the origin story, Jeff and Joe Borgstrom and I teamed up in, I guess, early April, and decided to start putting together what we call Downtown Happy Hour. And we've built a absolutely fantastic Facebook group of over 2,000 folks that they get in there and ask questions and share. And last month we went and we asked, what kind of content would you like to see? And one of the first things that popped out was, can you help us with winter strategies? So that really was the precursor. Like, it was direct content that was requested from the members of the group. And then the contributors here at Proud Places dug into it. And I have actually found that for me, like many folks, I mean, I know I battle with dyslexia. I have a hard time digging deep into longer articles and that kind of stuff, but visual videos and kind of that quick strike to get the information is something that really, really works for me. So I had started seeing a whole stream of different winter articles coming out, and thought there was a ton of good information in those, but wanted to see if we could provide a slightly different format that was maybe a little bit easier to digest. And we took it live this morning at about 8 o'clock or so, and we already have 150 views on it, which is fantastic, with folks digging in and getting some of this information. But it really was enjoyable to dig in and try to organize it in a way where help people to take everything on from the mundane topics of snow removal into the more creative topics of, okay, during a global pandemic, how do we handle things like photos with Santa Claus? How do we handle that traditional Christmas parade that is so important for our community? So that's what we tried to cover.
That's awesome. And I guess, and there's value for whether you are, I mean, a business owner obviously is going to get value out of this, but then also, you know, the Main Street boards, downtown boards, city leaders. I mean, I think there's a lot in there for a lot of different people.
Yeah, that's what we were shooting for. You know, the first topic that we got into was snow removal. And, you know, being born and raised in South Carolina, this was not a topic that we had to spend a whole lot of time on, obviously. But, you know, I think the things that we've had the opportunity to do a lot of calls with managers from Michigan and Wyoming as they move towards winter. And, you know, what do we do with the snow? Where do we take it? Where does it go? If we're dedicating parking spaces to parklets to try to get outdoor dining, what happens if that now removes places that we would have stored that snow capacity? So is it changing the way the city has to handle that? Is it changing the equipment that they need to be able to move the snow out of the way? Is it going to enhance all or change that whole strategy? So it's not exactly the sexiest of topics, but it is a logical place to start with the way that your downtown functions as it starts to get colder.
I've really enjoyed some of the conversations that have, happened on Slack. I mean, the video was great, but it was sort of a culmination of things I'd seen building up to that in our side conversation. I really get the impression, obviously, from, John Justo over talking in the Netherlands about how they deal with it. And then you get some more from Jaime and his experience. I mean, the guy's traveled everywhere and lived everywhere. And I get the impression that's seen as a far different thing in other countries, and particularly the continent of Europe, that it's that they expect their commercial districts to be very active. It's expected that you still go out and participate, and I really love that because we all feel like you get 6 months of time in the downtown and hanging out, and that is not their expectation, and they really think that those are spaces that can be utilized year round. And now I think that we're forced into preparing for that, considering that we know that going inside to restaurants and bars is going to be problematic. So it's as with anything, a problem can be an opportunity, but I really love this idea that we might adopt some of that type of thinking, because man, it's fun. I like being outside in the winter. I think it's fun to continue to keep up social ties and doing some of those things when it's not ideal weather. So it's been fun to explore.
Well, and not to sidetrack too much, but hearing you talk about that different mindset in Europe, I think it always kind of reminds me of those European communities that they believe that the wear and tear on the buildings of their downtowns, on the buildings of their commercial areas, are the community's responsibility to upkeep instead of the building owners. So in those downtown cores and the downtowns of Europe, where you're seeing all of this traffic and all of these people and all of this activity, the mindset there is that is the community's responsibility to maintain it. Where it seems like here it is always not our problem.
That seems like it's no one's responsibility here,
right,
not even the owners.
Right.
It's that guy.
Yeah.
I think that, to me, when we sit there and we kind of look at the idea of some of the mindset, it's like we see some of that in parts of the country where where, you know, snow happens for so long. I mean, I know, Ryan, you spend part of your year in Colorado, and you know, we hear of snowstorms in July, right? So the need of those communities to be able to extend the outdoor life as long as humanly possible, that has been around for them long before we've dealt with COVID. But
Sure.
you know, I think seeing those strategies is going to be even more important this year.
Yeah. One thing it makes me think of, and so kind of a question for both of you guys, because, Jeff, you talk a lot about, parking, and downtown doesn't have a parking problem. It has an attraction problem. And parking is sometimes seen as this barrier. When if you get the attraction right, people will figure it out and they'll find a way to park. And I'm curious if you guys feel like winter and weather is kind of a similar thing, and that we could absolutely blame, hey, it's too cold outside, that's why we're not. But when you look at people at football games in the stands when it's snowing in Lambeau Field, and you look at people at ski resorts outside drinking beers, and that's they're dealing with it. They're putting on clothes. And Bernice, another contributor at Proud Places, started a Slack conversation that we were all chiming in on things that the visitor could do. Like, if you're going to a place, what are things you can do to be prepared for winter and kind of be a better patron of these businesses and sit outside. And so I think she's got an article coming on that. But I'm curious if you guys see those as parallel issues of like parking and weather, and we sometimes need to focus on something else.
I think it's a great observation, Ryan, and the football analogy is a perfect one. Like, because it's such a draw, because it's such a spectacle, like you can hold them anywhere at any time, at any weather, and people will go. And a healthy, like a good business is successful always. If people want to go to a restaurant, they will wait for hours. If there's a retail store that people love, they will wait for hours. They will show up in any inclement weather, like they are drawn to that. And if you have a bunch of those mixed into one district, people will come. I mean, there's not a time that you know yeah, all the honky tonks in Nashville are probably empty. Like, people love to go to South Broadway all the time. Those districts just draw people, and so yeah, using parking, using weather isn't always an excuse, because we know that the best districts don't have enough parking. The best districts do have weather. People will find a way to get there, whether it's public transportation, walking, biking, by any means. But yeah, to just throw your hands up and say like, no, we can, is once again kind of catering to, I always see it as catering to the bad business owners and bad property owners. They want to make excuses why they're not doing better. And so they kind of rely back on those old tropes. And the sad thing is, too often city council believes them and tries to accommodate them when, like, I don't know, we talked about this recently. It's like, you want to put out, you want to help business owners, but like the good ones always show up to everything and they're doing really well, and the bad ones never show up to anything and they're not doing well. It's hard to help those that don't want to help themselves, and I think that good business owners will just, and districts will do fine.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your video. Like, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting growing up in South Carolina and then moving to Delaware. They're businesses that were literally year-round businesses in South Carolina that are seasonal businesses here. And like, I have a hard time getting my head around it. It's like there's this big deal in town every year when the Dairy Queen opens back up. But like, I keep asking the question, why does Dairy Queen close? Like, I'm not sure why they don't stay open. They serve food. They like, who said that you don't buy ice cream in the winter? Like, I like ice cream year round. It's so, I think that, to your point, Ryan, this year has given us the opportunity as stewards of our place to kind of pose the question, hey, if you're typically ramped down, why? Give us the chance. Give us a chance to bundle up and go out on the patio. Give us the chance to order drinks by the fire. Like, give us the chance to continue to be customers and interact, because there's been no better time of disruption to change retail habits. So I do think you're right. I think this will be a very interesting year. And honestly, I think that it's the reason why we have heard so much talk about winter strategies. Like, everybody has been talking about this topic, because this is the first year that this transition has become truly visible again.
Yeah. And I want to make sure too that I mean, we're being fair to business owners too, because Jeff, all your points are 100% on point, but this is a unique year. Like
Sure.
this is a hard year, and we're definitely not here saying, well, just be better and people will come, and we'll put on a jacket. Like, they need a video like yours. They need really tactical strategies and steps to help them get through it. But so they need to do those things. But I feel like the businesses that are willing to do those things are the ones that they're not giving up. They're not just like, well, no one's coming to my business because there's not a parking spot right in front of it, and so I'm gonna stop. So yeah, because there's a lot of things that, yes, they can do for winter, but then they need to not stop there. There's a lot of things they probably need to keep doing just in their business in general, and just in their district in general. And for the city leaders that don't run businesses and they just manage down, don't just forward this to your districts. Make sure, like, are you doing the right things from a big picture standpoint? Like, is your district walkable? Does it have the space in front of your buildings to put tables and put heaters and do these things? Or did you try to cram an extra lane in and now we don't have that? There's so many things that all need to be happening. And it's, when one doesn't happen, it's easy to domino and everybody just kind of give up.
It's a fair point. Sometimes I paint with a bit of broad brush, but yeah, that is, I'm guilty. But yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I'm not placing blame at the feet of all business owners. Not by any means. That this is it's a once in a century issue that we're dealing with, and it's hard for everybody. But right, I mean, I certainly would encourage all business owners to find ways to mitigate, to find ways to deal, to find new ways to attract people and look at what's out there. But it's just, but also very much the point, like the district has to do its part. And I think that that's something I think that we lose sight of all too often, is that like the municipality, I get it, Main Street communities are good at this. They know that they have to set the stage, like where your business is located makes all the difference. And the Main Street organization, the Downtown Revitalization Organization, has to do as much as they can to set the stage, to bring people out, to bring them to the door of the business. But like municipalities also have a huge responsibility, and they need to do their part to make sure that they're investing in this type of infrastructure, that they're, and lots of simple legislation, like make it easy for make it easy to have drinks, in wherever, to what was one that was on the Slack, like to get cocktails outside and walk around with them. Jaime was talking about potato ovens, not even sure what these are, but there's a lot of cool things that can be done that are going to help create that whole atmosphere, that ambiance that people are going to drive past or walk past or see in a picture or a video and say like, shit, man, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Gosh, it reminds me, last year I was up in Vermont for a training, and it was like their snowball or something. And it was a big party that this hotel had, and it like ended up dumping 15 inches that night. But it was awesome. Like, it was such a fun party because you're so not used to people being outside and that sort of weather. And like, everybody just dressed warm, and we're outside for hours, and there were heat lamps and drinks. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
Right,
that's so
right.
great.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was going to say, Ben, I think you'd love this, just being a branding guy, but I did this interview with Jason Thorne from Hamilton, Ontario. He works for the city up there, and it's on our podcast, but it was about the idea of like living the brand, because we see so many communities that like, they say things like, we're a music city, and they do this like music logo, and they put all this stuff. But then when the rubber hits the road, you run into things like, oh, there's not loading zones for musicians, and our busking laws don't allow for people to play music. Right? You have all these like things that city departments and bylaws and code enforcement and all of these things. A brand, it can't just live in the marketing and tourism and PR communications divisions. It has to find its way. And so when we interviewed him, I thought it was really eye-opening, excuse me, because he talked about how his department, it's a very integrated department, so that all those other departments are under him. And so when they say, from an economic development or tourism standpoint, we want to be a music city, Well, bylaw enforcement and traffic enforcement, those things are under his department. And so they can make musician loading zones and change the busking laws. And I think for the winter stuff, it's got to be the same. You can't just have your communication be like, okay, let's help our downtowns with businesses if your code enforcement and all these other things aren't making it easy. So yeah.
No, I'm completely with you, and I think that the idea of going through and trying to make sure that you can adapt. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, that I love that example. We worked with a community in Louisiana that loved to tell people about how they were the birthplace of Zydeco, but it's like, you better make sure you can hear Zydeco music, because birthplace of Zydeco doesn't mean anything if you can't experience the experience. So, one of the things I do want to talk about, though, is I think it's really important. We talked about kind of the outdoor space and making downtown experienceable, but also, what are some ideas for our retailers and for our businesses to be able to take advantage? And I think that one of the biggest things that we really need to reinforce is is probably the most important task for us, is to create a steady and consistent shopping stream from now all the way through Christmas Eve. And we're not going to be able to have the crowds. It's going to be a weird Black Friday. We've already seen major retailers that are starting to push out festivities and spread things out. So we're hearing a lot of talk about things like 12 Days of Christmas, kind of spreading out and highlighting small events and kind of trickling people down. We've even heard things about different kinds of discounts based off what letter your last name starts with. So it's like it's trickled down to kind of spread the people out. Unboxing videos, so businesses can kind of highlight new merchandise as it comes in and go ahead and almost do some of the transaction on social, so that the interaction maybe becomes a little quicker. We've seen a lot of folks that are posting products on Facebook and allowing people to post their names to get on virtual wish lists. And then even just doing things like virtual gift guides or theme days that are focused in on trying to get a particular kind of customer to come down for that day. So you might have like Tuesdays are the days that sons buy Christmas presents for their mothers, and it's like you create a really, really specific niche, and then you make the invitation to everybody. And I thought that some of those were really good ideas to get the creative juices flowing from the business's standpoint, and to be able to create an opportunity for them to create that consistent stream to really drive customers in.
Yeah, I love that. I saw when the shutdowns first happened of COVID, I like to do a lot of fly fishing, in the fly fishing shop in Dallas, Tailwaters. They started doing these auctions or raffles on their social media, and because their store was closed and nobody could go in there, and they would put up they did multiple, like 4 or 5 a day. And and granted, they're in Dallas, which is a big market, but they would put up like a prize package of probably $1,500 worth of gear, Patagonia bags and jackets and all this stuff. And it was $10 to get a spot. Well, they sold way more $10 things than if somebody had walked in and bought that $1,500 worth of stuff. And I guarantee you that was actually more profitable. They were making more money when they were doing these raffles than they were on normal days, because everyone's sitting at home and you can't go out and you can't shop. But yeah, I'll throw in $10 for a chance to win something that's $1,500 worth of stuff.
Absolutely.
And it was fun. Idea. Yeah. And they would do it live, and they'd get on there and they'd be like, all right, the winner is so-and-so. And so, yeah, I love that. I think in businesses, you just got to be creative and just try things, and not everything's going to work, and you got to just try it and see what works and what doesn't work.
Agreed. I think it's really about trying to focus on the experience as much as you can, but yes, throw everything to the wall and see what sticks. I remember years ago hearing about, it was a women's clothing shop in Ohio, and that the wives or women would pick out whatever they wanted in advance, and the shop did this thing where it's like, show up, we're gonna have a Monday night football game on, we'll have all the beer and food, basically like, you show up and you will leave with your present already wrapped. Like, we're going to make it as simple as possible. And like, yeah, that's smart. Like, know your audience. I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it. But yeah, people still want to go out. People, like, people will still, even in smaller amounts, even if it's staggered, like people will still want to go out and experience. There's certain things you just have to see. You have to, touch and feel before you purchase. And I think it's key to try to entice people out to do that with, with however means necessary to pull them into your store, to do something different. But like, um, yeah, there's Ben, you said all the cool things I was going to say anyway, right as you started. So
One of the things that and this kind of carries us back outside, but this was one of the ideas that came out of the Slack conversation was, um, European style winter markets. And I think sometimes we are prone in our communities to kind of overcomplicate things sometimes. It's like we come up with an idea and then we figure out how to make it as hard as humanly possible. And when you sit there and you look at these winter markets, I mean, a lot of these structures that they bring in are essentially are, turnkey sheds from your, local home improvement warehouse. Like it's, we're not talking about big complicated things. And there is something magical. And Ryan, I think that you might have said it. In fact, I'm sure you are. It was one of my favorite Pod Places episodes when you guys talked about the party trailer that you all designed, and you talked about the magic of being allowed to be in the street when typically you're not,
Mhm.
and how that creates this sensation, that creates a memory that like hardwires into who you are. And to me, these winter markets, these like pop up like things, experiences that come out of nowhere and then they go away. I might be the only one that's like this, but like I still remember places in my mother's backyard where there were Easter eggs hidden, and every time you kind of walk by that hole in the tree and you're kind of like, I wonder if there's anything in there, because there's that magic in the experience that you once had. And I think that we're going to see a lot of communities make an effort to try to recreate that magic and give experience back to the people this holiday, and that's exciting to me.
Absolutely.
very, very much so. And I was thinking I was in Holland. Ben, you've been to Holland, Michigan recently?
I have not recently, but I have been there.
Yeah,
Great, great town.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there for a conference last November, December, and outdoor fireplaces everywhere and great lighting. And just really compels you down the street. Plus, like those good businesses that still, whether it's whether you can see the light spill out, whether you can hear the music spill out, whether they're, that warm sort of fireplace light, or seeing people inside, sipping on a Guinness, or, other types of businesses that just seem warm and inviting. Like, not this, the city did such a good job of compelling you down the street with, heated sidewalks and the fireplaces and great outdoor lighting, but the business has all done such a great job of continuing to compel you down the street, and like you just wanted to go in. So many, they were all so great. So there's, yeah, it's just as it's the same sort of tactics. Like, how do you seem inviting in winter as you might be in summer? But if the city does their job of setting the stage, businesses can certainly do a great job of making your place seem warm, cozy, inviting, cheery, all those things that we want to experience, all the Danish ideas that we talk about sometimes, that like that sense of winter coziness that's so appealing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's an area where I feel like we still have a ton of work to do, because I feel like if the city does the right things, and a lot of these businesses kind of embrace this, we can create some cool atmospheres where people will go and they'll get a drink and the kids are having hot chocolate and it's fun and you're hanging out. And that's great for the like places that sell like drinks and food and things like that. But there are so many like retail businesses and shops and just local businesses that aren't that like fun consumer product experience, but it's still a local business that like, you need to support. And I just feel like for those of us in this circles that kind of beat that like anti-Amazon shop local drum all the time, I still feel like we're failing on moving the ball down the field with that, because I talk to so many people that absolutely support local, buy local, shop local, but then they still are going to go do their Christmas shopping all on Amazon. And I think this year more than ever, like people, like we need to go out of our way to just go buy gift cards at the local businesses. Try to challenge yourself. Could I do all my Christmas shopping local? Could I do, all of my company corporate gifts local? Because I don't know. I mean, I think it is easy because even if your Main Street did something cool like that, it's easy to go to that, have a good time, drink the hot chocolate, have fun, and then go home and do all your Christmas shopping on Amazon. And I still feel like we have too many people doing that because it's easy. It is. It's super easy. So I don't know how we get that message out there and how we motivate people to literally take action on it.
That's a great call, and I think that what first comes to mind is like, right, that when it comes to certain types of businesses, that survive more, that thrive more on Main Street, they're not your day in and day out. They're not your everyday goods. Those are going to be, restaurants, bars, but also like clothing stores, niche goods, maybe children's toys, things like that. But when it comes to like where do you go to get the things that you actually spend all your money on, like groceries or toiletries or whatever it is, like those are really hard to get local, and we have not. That's kind of a larger problem that I don't know how to address. Because right, if I wanted to buy, I don't know, if I wanted to buy toothpaste local, like I have no idea where I would even do that. I mean, that's a tricky thing, and that's where so much spending goes, and that's kind of that's a bigger societal issue, I think, that we have to figure, because once you build sprawl, once you build that type of like, once you make it easy to do that convenient sort of shopping, it'll be hard to it's hard to put that cat in the bag. It's hard to have a store then come in and compete once you already have, 3 Rite Aids, 2 CVS, and a Walmart.
But it is also, I know that, and I don't want to spend too long on it because obviously it's the big elephant, but it's not convenient.
No, sorry. That's a great point. I'm sorry I used that word. You're exactly right.
It is like the great now you can't necessarily make the same argument with Amazon. Like that is the thing that Amazon has done, is they have made it convenient. Like they made it easy to not support your local community, where going to Walmart is not convenient. Like it is the antithesis. And I think that's what is particularly scary. I think when Ryan puts together a meeting about Amazon, like Amazon is scary because it actually has the benefit. Like there's a certain part of it where it's like shopping to the Walmart at the Walmart, it's almost like the guilt is baked in because of the experience that you have just subjected yourself to. And that's a hard dynamic where we some really amazing things. I was telling folks the other day about this small community of 3,600 people close to where you are, Jeff, Kane, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And Kane, they launched a chamber dollar program. And all it was an opportunity that businesses could, instead of giving gift cards or whatever, they just give chamber dollars, and they can be used at any chamber member. In this first year of this community of 3,600, they had nearly $14,000 in chamber dollars purchased and given to members of the community. And it can be used anywhere. It can be used at the car shop. It can be used at the meat market. It can be like, it's not just the experience. It is a way, it has evolved into a way where they say, I love spending dollars in my town. And there's a pride in having that number increase every year, because they're like, this is citizens helping citizens, neighbors helping neighbors. And I think there's no better time to think about that than the holidays. And how can you support local, but also it's not just how can you gift shop local, how can you shop local, how can you make more of your money that you drop down and go to your friends and neighbors.
Yeah. My grandmother, she she buys her vitamins at a certain store, even though it's more expensive, because she knows the store on this side of the street, her local tax dollars stay there. So she could go get them cheaper just on the other side of the street, but that's the city. And she told me that. And I was just like, one, that's awesome. But two, nobody else is doing that. That is like, I don't think people do that. I don't think that's normal. I don't think our generation and younger think like that. I think they do think shop local, but they don't even think about like local, like your town, your taxes. Like, they would
Well,
consider that still local.
imagine this. So imagine this. Here in Delaware, we don't have sales tax. So therefore, the motivation of the local government to help drive higher sales is completely gone. The awareness of the consumer that their dollar actually helps the place that they're in is gone.
Yeah.
So take all of the frustrations that you have and then amplify it by a situation where they're not even paying sales tax. So the transactional nature of that purchase doesn't even feel like it's helping. And that's where it does get frustrating and get difficult. But I think with the long efforts of American Express and the Shop Small Saturday, I think that one of the things we're going to see is that really expand out to be kind of a shop small season. And I think that anything that we can do to be able to better highlight the needs of our businesses and honestly, just simply highlighting the things you can find in your downtown. I think that one of the biggest lessons, and Ryan, I'm sure you echo this too, it is one of the most amazing fallacies of community. You would expect that a community member is going to be the one with the highest level of motivation to explore what their community has to offer. But the mindset of the typical resident, they've already made their retail habits. They already go where they go. Their motivation to explore is virtually non-existent. And being able to like break that down and being able to say, hey, your community has changed right under your nose. Did you know you could buy this and this and this all in your downtown? You didn't? Well, you need to get down there and find out for yourself, because the place you think you know is very different from the one that's there. So,
and once again, I have to eat my words, which I think is a popular topic. Because oftentimes that is the case where people say, "I can't get that thing here," and they can. And I should have been far more careful, because I'm sure that I'm sure if I looked a little bit, I could find that tube of toothpaste locally. It's just a little bit harder, but it is worth it, and it is certainly. I loved your point that yes, going out to big box stores is the least convenient thing ever. And the idea it's been sold that way is such nonsense. Like, it is convenient to walk somewhere nearby and also have all these interactions on that walk there that are enjoyable, instead of getting your blood pressure boiling in the car. And I think part of it is like, we've as consumers, as I hate calling people consumers, but we've gotten more knowledgeable in a lot of areas where, like, in terms of food, people are so much further along than they used to be. And I think in time we'll get that way in terms of other types of shopping. I think that we'll get there and say, like, okay, yeah, it might be $1 cheaper, but that's also $1 that's not going to my neighbor. Eventually I think that we are smart enough to pick that up, that it's like, I'm not saving $1 so much as that my community is losing $1. Like, I am, that savings happening because it's sort of, somebody else is getting shorted. And so you're shorting your community when you save that $1 instead of reinvesting back in your town, which ultimately, when you do that, yes, there's a delay, but that $1 ultimately goes back to you. It goes back to you in property values. It goes back to you in quality of life. Like, man, if people spent more in, like, just 50% more in their community, think how wealthy their community would be. The money, like Amazon and Walmart and all these companies, are getting rich because of your town.
Yeah.
And so we probably shouldn't want to invest in that. We should probably make it easier to make our own friends and neighbors wealthy.
Yeah. I think this is a really good time, though, to focus on that awareness, like you were talking about, Ben, because where I am right now in Salida, Colorado, I remember about a year ago talking to a business owner, and what you said was kind of the first time that I ever realized that was when he was telling me that he's like, yeah, locals don't really go downtown as much. That's mostly who's visiting the downtown shops and restaurants are visitors. And locals kind of get in their routines and habits, and they go to downtown maybe every once in a while, to go out to eat or something like that. But they don't, we live downtown here, so we're here every day, walking to the coffee shop, making the rounds to all the shops and stuff. But when COVID hit and a lot of the visitors couldn't come, it was almost an opportunity for the locals to like rediscover their own town, because they did a really good job here of like making the need known of like, look, we're not going to have our visitors this summer. We need you locals to step up and come to downtown. And they did. And the city did their part. The city shut down the main street and it's blocked off for cars, and the shops and restaurants came out, and it's packed. Like it's vibrant and happening all the time. And a lot of people thought, well, when school starts back, you're not going to see that anymore. School's gone back, it's still packed because the locals loved it and they made it part of their routine, and now they're supporting it every day.
Come back to this all the time. Like, all your city has to do is win over locals. All
Right.
you really have to do is win over the people that already call your community home, and you will do so well. Like, it is the natural, sustainable, self-reliant fit that the people in your town can consume the goods and services in your town. And if you just do that, like, you won't ever have to worry about much else.
Right. It is interesting. I keep going back to a comment that Joe Borgstrom made several weeks ago, where he talked about how vital it is for a community to truly believe that its goal should be to increase community wealth. And if we start talking about this idea of enhancing community wealth, it's funny. I mean, it's almost like virtually every conversation that we have goes back to that. We can very easily tie in the idea of, hey, when you support local business, you are growing community wealth. You are investing in the wealth of your community. When you go through, and it's funny, whenever you have a conversation about gentrification, well, there's a great, like, it's kind of like, okay, well, if we do this, are we going to push the people that are in here out? Sure. But what are we doing to increase the wealth of the people that are there? If y'all can hear that, that's an air raid siren. We're getting bombed in Delaware.
Do you need to get under the desk?
And so we have this interesting dynamic in Delaware where all the fire companies are volunteer. And even though it is 2020 and you can literally be notified by phone call, text message, beeper, pager, and everything all at once, they still have the air raid siren because they want everyone to know that the fire company is on the call. So we get to deal with that several times a day. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that fire raids aside, or air raids, sorry, aside, I think that is a very good point. That the idea of gentrification comes around when other people come into your community and make money, and and that's not the idea any of us ever think about when we think about how to revitalize. It's or the I get this sometimes, like, there's so many renters. Like, well, you know what? If they were owners, they would be be creating wealth. Like, why don't you go after the the slumlords and not the people living in substandard housing? Like, it all goes back to that creating local wealth. And if we took more renters and made them owners, if we took the prop businesses or buildings out of the hands of deadbeats and put them in local hands, like, through real estate, you can create local wealth. And that is the step that just seems to be always overlooked in this. That if somebody buys, if somebody local buys that building and renovates it, like, that's not pushing money out of the community. It's keeping money in the community where it'll stay.
Yeah. Hey, let me throw two ideas out that it's kind of a divergence from where we've been talking about.
Well, but we got pretty far away from Christmas markets too. So
didn't we? In doing the research for this, there were two ideas that I thought were really interesting. I think one of the big things that I kept asking folks about was, what about Christmas with Santa? You know, photos with Santa. Like it's such a big part of holiday tradition for so many communities. And we had one community in Michigan that what they're actually going to do, and it's kind of a clever idea. They're going to get one of those inflatable snow globes that Santa will be inside, and then the kids can stand in front of the Santa snow globe and still get their photo with Santa. So, you know, I think that it's a hard topic, kind of figuring out how can you safely move forward with Christmas traditions or holiday traditions. But I thought that was a really, really interesting idea. And then one of the other ones that I really liked was the idea of a backwards parade. And there was some concern in one of our communities about having all the people kind of lining the street side by side. So instead, what they're going to do is they're going to have all the floats line the street leading into their downtown. The people drive by the floats, but then they specifically stopped the parade and spilled everybody into the downtown. So instead of having it disrupt the traffic, it shot everybody out into downtown. So it becomes an event that's safe, it's distant, and then it's kind of dumps people into their downtown. So again, you know, nothing like desperate times to have creative solutions. And I really kind of love the idea of this backwards parade. I think it's just it's a clever take on a long time tradition.
That is a
Yeah,
ton of fun.
I
Very
love it.
creative, very fun. And I, right, like people still want to get together, especially at the holidays. There's that need of togetherness, that need of community, of belonging, and just a sense of community. And I think that please find ways to give that to them. Please make sure that you let people access those emotions at the holidays, because they're so much of a part of our lives. And I think that districts that do that, no matter what creative way they do, are going to benefit from it, not only in shopping, but also in just the, like, in rooting people into their community. Hey, this is my place. I love it for a reason. I love these people that I'm surrounded with, because that is something that cities need to do. That's something we need as humans. It's something cities need to cultivate. Otherwise, they suffer from it. So yeah, those are super cool ideas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was great.
and I think, you know, heading into the holiday season, there's you mentioned traditions, you know, and that makes it hard. And I think, I don't know, I think people need to be really conscious to, because traditions are great, right? We love them. It's like you know, you remember things that you did with your family, but I think we need to also like embrace new things and like see that as an opportunity to like, well, let's make new traditions. Maybe this new thing that we do becomes the thing that it was different, and that stands out to our kids and they love it, you know, because kind of like the block party for our kids. Sometimes I'm trying to think of an example and I'm kind of going blank, but I can think, I know that our kids have pointed out things when we talk to them of like, you know, it was a moment that stood out to them, and to us it was the most random thing, but for some reason it stood out to them because it was like out of the ordinary, or it's like that was a weird thing to do that, or we skipped school that day and went to a baseball game, or we just did something different and it made it unique. And so I think it's hard because we want it to be the exact same as we've done it every year,
Right.
and just push forward and just do something new. And if it sucks, it sucks. But if it's awesome, maybe it's your new tradition. You know.
Reminds
Well,
me that we kind of took a stab at it this weekend. Um,
yeah. I
I
want to know about that. I want to know about the whatever that thing was that held the fire in the middle of the street, because I
ah.
need some of that's pretty awesome.
So, big fan of going to Oktoberfest sort of stuff. And there's Pittsburgh has pretty German roots. So there's always some great Oktoberfest events over, whether it's Hofbrauhaus or Penn Brewery or whatnot. And those are all, severely changed this year. And, it's October. I want to drink dark beer and eat huge plates of meat and listen to polka. It's just, that's what has to happen. So we decided to go to combine block parties and an Oktoberfest. It's block parties are a big part of our kind of culture in this neighborhood. The city makes them real easy, so we always host them and always put them on. It's $25, takes 10 minutes to fill out the application. It's easy. They drop off the barricades and you're good to go. And so we, on Saturday afternoon, we wanted to do this. We set up a long row of tables down the street, separated them some, but they were in a row, and people brought some different foods. We got a keg of Oktoberfest, put out fire pits, put out torches. That fire pit was mine that you saw in the photo. Yeah, it's built taller than it is wide, so it has a really weird look that stands out, but it's super cool.
Yeah. Love it.
And so yeah, it was great. We probably had about 40 or 50 people came out in the neighborhood. Everybody drank some beer and got to chat. Had, like anywhere, we had some fire pits, some people brought some heaters, so we had a way to deal with a bit of the chill. People wore some warmer clothes, but it was great to see everybody. It was great to still participate in that tradition that I've really come to love, that we couldn't, and everybody still had a chance to get together, which strengthens our ties to the street. So it was a fantastic event.
And and the weird thing is, Jeff, it probably never crossed your mind when you organized it, probably never factored into it. But if you do that event and it becomes an annual tradition, how much have you just increased the property value?
I actually
Like,
always think of that because I'm,
you know,
because of an economics background, like,
right.
yes.
I mean, it's like, it's funny because I was thinking about it the other day. I've gotten to the point where I try to take a walk each night, and after I get some of the kids in bed and kind of the ramp down, and I take my dog out and we'll walk and see if we can get a couple miles in. And it always is amazing to me how dark everything is. Like, I just keep asking, like, why do people not have porch lights on? Why places literally look so dead? And like, I was sitting there thinking to myself, what would happen if you just went and just sent a message to every person on your street and just said, hey, for this month, let's leave our porch light on every night? And I mean, we've got ours automated. Like, it comes on at sundown and turns off at sun up, and it's on all night long. And then our neighbor next door started doing it. And then, next thing you know, you get kind of that spillover effect. But it's those little gestures that make places feel alive. And, you know, if you're trying to sell that property and somebody drives through at night to see what the neighborhood feels like and every single porch light's off, guess what? You
Mhm.
just lost value. And it's just kind of weird. It's like, make it livable, make it where you love it, make it where you can enjoy it. And those are the things that build value. Have a block party, that makes value. Make it beautiful, and that makes value. Like, I don't get it. It's like, we for some reason don't invest in ourselves and don't invest in our own good time.
I could not agree more, and it's a subject that I love. And it's like, I feel like, because when finance people and economic development people took over the country, it's just like, we incentives, let's just do incentives, and forgot about how people actually function. And I think about that all the time, that for every block party, I become closer with my neighbors. So, like, all of our houses just became worth more, because if somebody wants, if there's an opportunity somewhere else in town, it's like, but I love all these people. I don't want to be away from them. I'm close to them. My kids are close to them. I don't want to relocate. And so they're all going through that. So, like, each one of those block parties increases your property value, because our attachment here continues to grow. And
Right.
think it's so smart that this municipality is like, yep, easiest thing to do. Because I lived in one before where it's like, oh, you couldn't possibly do that. How are we going to shut down the street? What will happen to cars? you know how are they going to get home if they can't use your
How
street?
people park.
how,
Yeah.
people, how will people eat? What?
Well, and
So
I
yeah,
think you
go
have
ahead.
to go. I think we have to go out of our way though to do that now. Like, it was before, it was natural, and it just, we have to take the initiative to host the block party and to go, because the lights are it's amazing how much of a difference that makes. I mean, the porch light is a no brainer, but oh my God, you throw tree lighting and house lights, and it's like, your house looks like it's $200,000 more expensive when it's well lit at night, But
Right.
I think
Right.
it gets back to how we've designed cities and all this, to where in a lot of neighborhoods, you could never go in your front yard except to get your mail, because you are in your house and you leave out of your garage in the back and you go to work, and then you drive back into your garage and you go to your house. And if you're going to go out, you get in your car and you drive somewhere else. And so unless you are very intentionally like getting out and walking your neighborhood, you might always be in your backyard or garage or leaving. And you might not even see your town. I mean, when our neighborhood starts putting up Christmas lights, we always start doing a little extra driving through the neighborhood just to see like who's put stuff up, and the kids like to look at it. But other than that, like we might not see the front of our and it's sad, like we might just always kind of leave out the back.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think it's one of those interesting things where I have thoroughly enjoyed, and I think that's one of the things I've always kind of talked about as we have kind of had conversations at Proud Places. It's like we always talk about civic, and we talk about kind of the community side, the downtown side, and being able to hear like Jeff's the block party stories, being able to see Ryan your recommendations on the block party trailers and that kind of stuff, and then just like really falling in love with the community again. And like I walk around, I can tell you who's working on their property. I can tell you what's going on. I can tell you when properties change hands, and like people have started walking by our place because they love to see the work we're doing on it. And like everybody will just like, they know who we are. And right now we've got this wood fence that I've been around the whole property, and we've got tiny pumpkins on every post. And like you literally see people just stop outside and look. And like it is so connecting, and it's connecting on such a personal level. I cannot tell you how many times people ask for tours of our backyard.
Hmm.
People we've never met who literally have walked by our house, seen the progress, and then literally are just like, would you mind showing me what you're doing in the backyard? Because if it's as good as the front, we need to see it. Like that's just pretty amazing, So I think that's the kind of stuff that really makes you connected to your community.
It does, and I love that you bring that up because yeah, you and I obviously both came into this through downtown work, but I realize that good community is far more than just downtown. Downtown is important because that's where we go to convene, that's where we gather, that's where we help keep money local, and that's what draws people to a town. But man, the neighborhoods matter so much. Like living in a place where people can feel close together, where people tend to where people take pride in their property, that's where the real roots start. And because that's your home extends outside of your front door into the street, into your block, and those are the people you share life with, and we don't sort of pay enough attention to that. So I love, like, I do the walk every day and I love it. And same thing, like see the same people, know the same people, but that is the part that, like, when it comes to sticking up for my community, what I think about is the people I care about. If I'm going to show up to council, it's not because whatever, it's not this reason or that, it's because, oh, all these people that I live near, I really care about them, and so this is worth fighting for. And yeah, cities don't sort of pay enough attention to how much a sense of community really affects how people behave.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you all a quick story that has nothing to do with winter strategies, but it happened last week, and it
Well, this
really,
is our
really
wrap up. This is our wrap up, Ben. So
well,
you better hit a home run.
This is the closer.
it really made me proud. So last Monday night, I get a call from our state legislator, and he tells me that the city council is going to be entertaining a proposal from a developer to build a residential development right on the river in our downtown at the key property that we identified in the 2015 master plan, where we had showed this brick multi-story mixed use, really like becoming the hub of the community. The developer was proposing a 4-story all residential gated community with no mixed use whatsoever. So obviously I was hot and heavy. I hop on the city Zoom call, and I'm ready to light some fires and throw some axes, and systematically, one by one, every single council member said, we were really excited about mixed use. We don't like the fact that the gate separates this land. This property should be the community's. We want people to be, to be able to engage and be part of this property. Like, they stuck up for the community. They stuck up for the good of the community. Now, we live in a community of 14,000. This is not a place where, development demand is ultra high. It would have been easy for them to fold to the project that was here. It would have been easy for them to just say, hey, we have a person who's ready to invest, let's do it. But they didn't. They stood up for the people and the experience, and they understood that you can't go back and redo this. If it's done wrong, it's done wrong, and the whole community has to deal with it. And I was just really, really excited to see that kind of transition, because that probably would not have happened 5 years ago. And when you see those elected officials, didn't matter what party they were from, didn't matter their backgrounds, literally one by one by one, and then went on to vote not to even entertain selling the property to the developer unless the developer came back with a dramatically different proposal. And I just, it makes me proud, because I think it's one of those things where it's like, that's the goal that we're shooting for, is for our community leaders to be leaders.
That is a
Yeah.
fantastic story, and it truly is like pride embodied, because what most communities do, we all know this. Hey, somebody showed up, like, oh my God, somebody brought us investment. I don't care what it is. Like, it's like if your buddy's out dating, it's like, I don't care who swipes right at me, I am saying yes, regardless of the face tattoos. Like, just I'm in. It's like, yeah, your city, when they say no to something because they have higher standards, because they want something better, is such a testament to change and leadership, and saying like, no, we really need, if we're going to get here, we have to start following our own road markers. We have to start making decisions that lead us to there. And that project wasn't. I love that, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that's rare though. That's not, I think we like to think that all of our city councils are doing what's best for the long-term interest of the community. But the reality is it probably took, like you said, 5 years of work and conversations to get your council to a place that it had that strength and pride to do that. And, a lot of communities are not there yet. And so they would say yes to any shovel ready project that comes across their board.
But isn't that the goal, is building proud places? So it was, you hit a home run, and honestly, it's worth saying. I mean, it's worth reiterating, like, that is truly the goal, that to remind residents that they deserve to live in a place that makes them proud, to remind city council people and city managers, and like whatever your elected official is, that everybody deserves to live in a place that's proud. And actually, in raising your standards, you get better investment. No community ever, like, every time one of these communities said, well, we're going to make it easier to build here, we're going to remove the red tape, we're going to get rid of design ordinance, it's like, it is a race to the bottom. It simply means that they're going to be filled up with garbage and bullshit, and nobody will eventually ever want to be there. Instead of going, the route that your community, Ben, is, where it's like, we're going to get better and better and better over time. We're going to, I might be able to go for a run for 100 yards today, but tomorrow I can do 200 in a few years. You can get to the marathon, and that's how you build proud places, is incrementally just asking for more, getting better. And it's awesome when you hear of a town that is successful in that. So it was, big pressure, but you actually came through there, Ben. You hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth. All right. Well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on today to discuss the winter strategies and all the other tangents we found ourselves on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
As always, everybody, we've got Proud Places full of amazing contributors like Ben Muldrow, who continue to do their best to try to make their community proud, to educate and inspire other peoples to make their community proud, and are willing to help you in your efforts, because we believe everybody deserves to live in a community that they can be proud of. So check it out on Facebook, proudplaces.com, Twitter, Instagram, and thanks for listening to Pod Places.